Welcome to the final episode of VSML 2016 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who, after going to Fantastic this weekend, may have been texting friends about his liver problems, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who often goes around Melbourne looking for intense contact with a group he doesn't know, David Bindley.
Good morning.
Good morning. How have your respective weeks been? It has been a week since we did the last episode, so I can actually ask that question for once.
Chaotic, but not in a way I can really go into on the podcast.
Did you have a fun Canada Day, Bindles?
Yes, I did.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah. I had my tuxedo, I had my poutine, I was all good.
Was it your Canadian tuxedo or your normal tuxedo? There's a very big difference.
Yes.
So it was a normal tuxedo, but with a denim tie. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
How was your Canada Day, Saunders?
The weather has really sucked here the past month or so. We haven't really had proper summer weather like we normally do here. And I think, 2 out of the 3 days it rained over the weekend, and then yesterday for Canada Day, because we don't really allow fireworks here anymore for any sort of celebration because of the risk of starting wildfires. So instead of Canada Day fireworks, they decided to have a drone show this year for the first time, where it'd be fireworks used by using drones to simulate it. And I guess about, 20 minutes or half an hour before the drone show, because they had it at the big city park and all the drones that they were preparing them all in the middle of the field, like where no car should be anywhere close to. And a car ran over key equipment to operate all of these drones. So then they were trying to fix the equipment to have the drones be able to work for the drone show. So people were there I think it was supposed to start at 10 o'clock at night, and no one knew why they weren't starting it. And at about 10:40 or 10:45, they got on the PA telling everybody there was going to be a drone show last night.
Peak Canada.
I mean, to be fair, it's probably good from a public safety point of view, because Canadians seeing drones probably would think it's a UFO. There are still some people in Vernon who are scared of the concept of fire. We don't want anything further than that, really.
Yeah, ever since they heard the War of the Worlds radio hoax a couple of weeks ago, there's just been a big distrust.
Ironically, I did actually genuinely have in my notes, says the next point, Okanagan's first drone show, witchcraft, ? So if you hadn't brought it up, I would have, because I did spot the headline. I mean, the major news in my life, I'm not sure whether you saw my tweet about this, but I won a radio competition last Friday. Well, technically, I won a radio competition a couple of weeks ago, but I won a competition to win an unlimited SIM card for a year, which I think we did discuss on the podcast.
Yeah.
But the winners of that competition at the end of each month go into a prize draw to win a brand new £1,500 iPhone. And I got the call on Friday. iPhone 15 Pro, I think it is, 250 gig, which means I now have an iPhone that is going to get sold, and I'm going to use the money deeply unwisely.
I was going to say, if you got the call to let you know you win it, that's how you know you don't have an iPhone already.
Well, yeah. I was led to believe that all three people would be on the line. I have a strong suspicion, although I don't know for certain, that I was probably the only one who actually got a call back, because the producer was deeply unsubtle about, I'll speak to you in a minute, he said, as a Freudian slip. That's not the bit of the story that I really want to tell on the podcast, because Logan knows my family fairly well at this point, I would say. And I did a tweet thanking the radio station, as I do, because I'm a complete arse kisser. And then I got a message in our family group chat, must have been about 10:30 on Friday night, saying, "Oh, I see you won an iPhone," from my mum. Because I was going to tell them on Sunday when I saw them, because it was only 2 days. And I didn't realise that my mother, in all her wondrous glory, has been snooping on my Twitter. So there is a non-zero chance that that she will have seen you calling me a C-bomb, Bindles.
Good. I mean, she knows I'm right.
Well, yeah, she knows. I am still favourite son, though, which is all that matters. The other thing that we potentially have to discuss, although maybe not, is all the TV premieres that we've had in the last week, because Traitors New Zealand came back yesterday. I've seen the first 2 episodes. solidly enjoyable so far. The cast are not arseholes, which is nice.
Oh, good.
Obviously, we must talk about NetMol because it is the greatest version of the mole ever.
It's already halfway through. It's only been on for 2 days, and it's already halfway through the season.
Yep. It'll be very, very interesting when the Netflix stats come out next week to see whether anyone actually did watch it to make it in to put it in the Netflix top 10 in the UK, because they do now actually have to report it. And I was literally, before we started recording this episode, watching the premiere of WIDM Oman. I like it a lot.
Oh, good.
I haven't done any notes or anything, so as of now, we're still not recording it. But yeah, I've just watched it as a fan, and it was solidly enjoyable, I would say.
Yay.
And compared to this season, very generous with the prizes. There were 2 challenges, and I think it was 5,000 euros they could have earned.
Wow. So I presume there will be a pot train.
I don't know, actually. I think they're going for more of a Belgian style. Belgium doesn't really love a pot drain, unless it's something
maybe
thematic.
one a season.
Yeah. If it's something thematic like Pandora's Box or Integrity Will Be Rewarded, then they do a pot drain. But Belgium finds pot drains a little bit mean. I would be very, very surprised if Oman ends up with a celebrity era pot, put it that way.
Okay.
Well, they don't have to pay any of the contestants for appearance fees, so I assume that frees up a bit of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it's very interesting that they still haven't released anyone's surnames. We know basically nothing about any of the contestants. They're credited specifically by just their first names throughout the entire premiere.
That's what they used to do with Australian shows.
Yeah, but it's interesting comparing it to WIDM, where obviously, because it's celebrities, they just reveal the surnames. But for some reason, they don't reveal any actual personal information for WIDM Oman, at least. I'm presuming you guys haven't seen any of those 3 yet. I know you skipped through to see what the cliffhanger was of Oman, Bindles, but
yeah,
it's a real shame that I know what the conclusion of the cliffhanger is for the first episode of Oman.
I'm sorry.
Because I've already been told.
What was the most absurd cliffhanger they've done for NetMol so far that you've heard? Was it somebody like eating mid-sandwich or something like that?
I've been staying very away from NetMol, not getting dragged into it, so I haven't heard any of the cliffhangers.
I haven't looked at it yet.
I know that 4 people went home in 5 episodes, which seems like more than last time.
I think it's the same number, because I think last time the first episode didn't have one, and then they were basically doing start of every episode.
Yeah, the first one definitely didn't have one because it cliffhangered with 3 people left vulnerable.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to mention to date this episode further, or?
Oh, yes. I waited 40 minutes at a food truck on Canada Day too.
Why?
For food, Michael.
I don't know what the hell they were doing, but I had to wait 40 minutes for my food at a food truck.
Cool.
Which I think is the world's slowest food truck I've ever experienced. The worst part is, the person behind the counter said, we're not taking any food orders right now. Well, we're going to start taking food orders in 4 minutes once we catch up. And then, of course, that turned into 10 minutes. And I was the second person in the queue to put my food order in. So I was thinking, probably like 5-10 minutes at the most. And that turned into about half an hour, maybe even a little over half an hour before I got my food.
I mean, to be fair, they did have to go and collect the food from a restaurant 2 blocks away, and they didn't have enough money for it.
Yeah, that's true. The WIDM cast could have probably delivered my food faster than the food truck did in another language. But yeah, and then a storm hit, so then we left the Canada Day festivities. So that was my really eventful Canada Day, was waiting 40 minutes at a food truck, but then being pleased that anyone who went to the drone show at night got it ruined because a car drove into the middle of a field and ran over some equipment.
Headline, Canadian man hates drones. I presume even though it's a public holiday in Canada, you don't take Canada Day off normally.
For teaching, well, not for, it'd be a stat for jobs within Canada, but for my teaching job, obviously not. I took the previous days off for the fantastic celebration for the Friday and the Saturday. The Monday I only took the early afternoon part when I knew I would go to the city park there and wait 40 minutes for yakisoba. Previously.
So yeah, previously, the final four hit an absolute goldmine as they divided a warehouse and searched an old sugar factory for cash clocks, almost doubling their pot in a single day. After a star turn on Dominican TV by the boys, they finished the round over 5 figures, but thanks to Annemiek's exemption and Klaas's green screen, the Blood brothers Tim and Taeke were split up, with Taeke running headfirst into a 4th place finish. And they are in La Romana, which I'm pretty sure is a pizza. Art says the last pair of the season... Romana definitely is. It's a base at Pizza Express. Art says the last pair of the season had to face music. After Rob and Annemieke were split up, now it was Taeke and a less than emotional Tim. He's in the finale with Klaas, who's been suspecting him from day one, and Annemieke, who now seems convinced that Klaas is the mole. Could she be blind to the real mole and have got through with her exemption, or is she the mole after all? I'm going to hazard a guess that, given that she scored 23 out of 40 on the final test, she was probably saved by her exemption.
Probably.
23 out of 40. I guess we could just dissect that now. I think the reason why this cast did not do well in challenges is because of those low final test scores. I think it's just indicative of the overall skill level when it comes to the mole. And the fact that Tim and Annemieke were both on Klaas and still couldn't prevent him from sabotaging challenges.
Yeah.
Like, they were both onto him and they couldn't find a way to neutralize him.
I mean, considering like the questions on the final test, they only have options that apply to the three of them, and she knows it's not her. 23 is probably less than she would have got just by randomly guessing.
Yeah. It's certainly close to the point where you could randomly guess and probably beat Annemieke.
Yeah, if you randomly guess, you could probably beat Tim.
Yeah, Tim was only at 25. And then Annemieke had a quote that really jumped out at me during the reunion where she said, "Oh, well, whenever you suspect somebody is the mole, you keep them at a distance." What?
That's not how it works, Annemieke.
Even the very first season of Mole US, they figured out that you keep the mole as close as possible so that you can get a perfect score on the final test.
I saw something, one of the podcasts about NetMol. Someone was telling me they were going on and on and on about just realizing the strategy of pretending to be the mole so other people think you're the mole. And I'm like, it's season 7 of the US version, and you think that's a new strategy? Like, no wonder the show hasn't worked there.
Americans inventing things that have already been invented? Well, I never.
Yeah.
Yeah, the less we have to say about NetMol, the better until someone pays us on Patreon.
Yeah.
The rule has never changed. If you sign up at the Patreon tier, we will do whatever season you want within reason, including NetMol or Australia 6 if you're completely sadistic.
Or Germany.
But it'll cost you. No, I don't hate Germany 5, I pity it. There's a difference. The episodes are ridiculously long. They're quite often full of serenading empanada breaks, but the actual season is a lot closer to the source material than NetMol is.
Huh.
There is a kernel of good stuff in there, and her name is Jessica. She is basically Ali, but in German form, and a middle-aged, very dumpy woman.
Ooh.
And she's a legend.
Do they have phones for executions in the German version?
No, they have a fuck ton of neon instead. They love a neon in Germany 5. Everything is neon, no matter what. But yeah, I don't hate Germany 5 as much as I hate Australia 6 and NetMol generally.
We should do France as a historians one year.
I love France. Kielatope is so much fun because it's insane. It's full of bonkers French people. Although the structure of the season's weird, as is the fact that, the mole pot thing is a thing.
Maybe we should do like one of the Finnish seasons where neither of you know who it is. Because they're quite fun.
Potentially. I love how we're just having a production meeting instead of talking about this finale.
Yeah, well, it's not like there's much to discuss.
True. The episode title's Photo Finish, and it's day 18. Tim narrates as they make the 5-hour journey to La Romana. He says he's not good at sitting still, but he listened to music and studied. Not that it helps him that much in the final test.
Hey, it could have been 15 out of 40 instead.
I think Tim, his whole nature works against him a lot, and it's a miracle that he won the season, because I think he is quite scatty by his own admission and very
Yeah.
easily distracted. So the fact that he scored 25 out of 40 is probably a victory in his book, even if Annemieke absolutely thrashed him on the final test.
Hmm.
Whereas Annemieke just has no excuse, I think.
Yeah. Like, I know he was complaining about, the 5-hour bus trip taking 9 hours. But wake me when your 11-hour overnight train trip takes 15 hours and you don't get any sleep because the people next to you are talking until 2:30 in the morning.
Ugh. Just tell him to shut the fuck up at some point.
Yeah.
So when they get to La Romana, they have 2 rooms, and Annemieke claims a separate one straight away, so the curse of sharing with Klaas might hit Tim now. And in their room, they have a see-through shower and toilet, just like it's Beijing. Pretty sure I've told that story on the podcast, the fact that we got to our hotel room in Beijing, and the one hotel you're allowed to stay in as a Westerner in Beijing, and the toilet had a glass window.
Oh.
Oh, it was like a honeymoon suite. That's hilarious.
I don't think there was anything romantic about seeing your elder brother shit. Luckily, there were blinds. But yeah, we had to make sure to put the blinds down whenever we were going to the bathroom, which is one of many unique experiences in Beijing.
I will say Annemieke being all toodles going back to her room is legitimately her funniest moment of the entire season.
Yeah. I think by the end of this episode, we're going to be talking a lot more about Tim as a winner than Annemieke as runner-up, or indeed Klaas as mole. Because can you imagine how dull the ending of this season would be if Tim got beat by Annemieke?
Yep.
21 out of 40 versus 23 out of 40.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, they probably would have edited the rest of the season a little bit differently.
Yeah. So they wake up on day 19 for their first assignment, and they are addressed as finalists by Art. They have to represent the culture of the Dominican Republic by reconstructing 5 photos around the town, and for each correctly replicated photo, they will get €200. If they get all 5, it will be bumped up to 1,500.
It was impossible for them to get all 5, even if it was a really good trio. Because that baseball team photo, to have everyone perfectly match the photo, that alone would have taken probably close to 10 minutes.
I suspect there was a degree of leeway in the photos. I think there was probably an off-air list of what elements of each photo had to get replicated.
Yeah.
That's what I had in my notes too. Was there's a lot of gray area with a challenge like this. Like how identical is identical? It's similar to that studio challenge where they had to mirror the other each other's rooms. I was thinking, well, like, does the person have to be smiling a certain way, or their hair be positioned a certain way? Because you can really just pick a random subtle difference and say, oh no, that's not right. You don't get the money for this.
Yeah. I think, judging from the way Art was judging it at the end, I think they basically had like a list of, here's 5 things in this photo that you need to get for it to count as correct. Here's 5 things for this photo, and so on.
Yeah. It certainly seemed like there was an off-air tick list of what elements needed to be replicated to get marked as correct for it. Because they're never going to match it perfectly, because you can't necessarily find the same people apart from the fish shop guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that the contestants, were given that off-air list of, okay, these are the 5 things you have to match. Otherwise, no bueno.
Yeah.
It's an interesting challenge. Like, it feels fun. It's a good showcase of the local culture. It's an interesting test of teamwork, but it's not a great mole challenge. It's like an Amazing Race detour at best.
Yeah, it was very Amazing Racy. But somehow, this is better than most Amazing Race challenges as of late.
Yep.
I like how Tim says about the first photo. He says, the first photo was an alcoholic with a trash bag.
A perfect representation of what I think about you guys. You decide which one's which.
And that one man was wearing the yellowest shirt, or the yellowest hat and shirt I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know that clothes could be that yellow.
It's like he'd been to Coldplay at Glastonbury.
I was about to say, don't make a Coldplay reference, don't make a Coldplay reference. And I resisted that temptation, but you didn't, so you lose.
2001's just reached Canada. Is there anything else interesting you want to talk about with this challenge?
Let's see. They convinced the woman to wear the very yellow shirt for the photo. I found that to be hilarious because it'd be so humid, and that shirt would have been probably very smelly and sweaty to wear. So I'm sure that woman loved that. Let's see. Oh yeah, when they couldn't just to find a random beer bottle that was full. They had to fool it by putting water into the empty beer bottle. And then Tim's other description for the photo was the alcoholic was angrily texting her friend she was miserable and that her liver hurt. The woman in our photo kept smiling. We had to keep saying to stop smiling when we took her photo.
Yeah. Imagine this challenge without Tim.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Taeke, and I suspect him interacting with the locals would have been hilarious, imagine this challenge without him. Tim brings all of the comedy in this challenge.
Yeah.
And I like how there was, like how they were trying to get a man involved in one of the photos, and he said, well, I don't have my clothes on, or as we say in Amazing Race, but I ain't got no clothes. And yeah, there was a huge fish. Also, the photo of the huge fish, I thought, oh, Stephanie Dill from Survivor Thailand would be proud.
I thought it was interesting that after last week, where the whole thing was Annemieke was the only one who spoke Spanish, Annemieke gets stuck with the language barrier trying to get the belt, and then Tim has to come out and do it. And like, it's not the only time in the challenge we see Tim speaking pretty decent Spanish.
Yeah, I can't remember whether we actually discussed this last week, but Annemieke said in the cable car challenge that she doesn't speak Spanish. She speaks something very similar. Papiamento.
Papa Bearmento.
Yeah, she speaks Papiamento.
Yeah.
And then last week, it's just declared that, oh yeah, Annemieke speaks Spanish. It's like, no, she doesn't. She speaks Papiamento. It's similar, but different.
Yeah.
Did anyone else find it hilarious that they had to go to to ask a local to just happily skip and dance to the graveyard with them for a photo?
I think Tim did as well, because he was like, muchas gracias for posing on somebody else's grave.
Yeah.
Not just a local, a chick. Tim specifically says that they're looking for a chick to help.
That sounds like the start of a murder mystery.
Yes, it does. And Annemieke, to her credit, does have a fairly funny quote when she says that Viestemol turned you into a horrible person, just asking for help and running off.
Yeah, I think she described herself as a crazy Dutch person with a camera.
That does not narrow down the population of the Netherlands.
So Art then reunites with them. The cemetery's correct, but the fish shop isn't, as the fish is hanging the wrong way. The barber shop's also correct, as is the bar photo, for a total of €600 of 1,500 for the challenge. And after the challenge, they try and work out who's to blame for the incorrect fish position, ignoring the fact that they lost €700 by not taking a fifth photo.
Granted, the whole baseball team just kept mugging for the camera repeatedly.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted to be on Dutch television.
And as much as I do love Art as a host, his confessional or his piece to camera is completely unnecessary when he tells us about the follow the money clue, because they've already worked it out by episode 2. Like, they know something's up with the back of the notes. There is no point having Art take a minute out of this episode to go, oh, it says follow the money in Spanish. And also, they don't realise that the mole's portrait's on the back of the notes. And I'm like, they do, Art. They just haven't got enough of the notes to work it out.
Yeah.
They just didn't tell you, man. Why do you get to know everything?
Even Cecile worked it out in, like, episode 4.
And she's Cecile.
Cecile, a poker player.
She channeled her inner Sam Sparrow and was just looking at black and gold. So the final challenge of the season takes place at a resort in Bayahibe, where Art meets them in the lobby. He says he's looking for one finalist with eyes in the back of their heads, and 2 with a look to the future. And Tim decides to volunteer Klaas to have eyes in the back of his head, and Annemieke isn't particularly happy that he volunteered her mole.
Why did Annemieke feel the need to explain the concept of a resort?
Because Dutch people have never seen resorts before.
Yeah. Like, does yours have peacocks and turtles and a Brazilian restaurant?
To be fair, Brazilian restaurant is particularly notable because they're usually really, really good.
It reminds me of that clip from 30 Rock where Tracy Jordan gets back into stand-up comedy, but he just has no way to relate to the rest of the population. So stand-up act is just like, don't you just hate it when your butler doesn't, or don't you just hate it when, when you have 5 bedrooms and just all of these just really, really upper elite rich people jokes that no one else is going to relate to. And I feel like that's what Annemieke is like when she's saying, yeah, don't you just go up to people and compare different resorts that you've been to about peacocks and turtles in Brazilian restaurants? Thinking, who travels like that? Who focuses on peacocks and turtles in Brazilian restaurants when they're going to places?
The irony is, of course, that 30 Rock can now be seen on Peacock.
Good point.
Can it be seen at a Brazilian restaurant?
Yep. It's a level up from watching a terrible version of The Mole at a terrible pizza place in Sydney.
Okay.
And was it Art who said that at an all-inclusive restaurant, it's not appealing to a mole who doesn't like to be seen? Why wouldn't a mole like an all-inclusive resort?
Yeah, an all-inclusive resort is appealing to everyone because it's free food and unlimited food, more importantly.
And given the Dutch cast that we've seen as of late, it also includes open bars typically. Isn't that how they got every contestant to sign up for the Mexico season?
It's just the word tequila. So Klaas will get a camera on his chest, and using the help of the other two, he must make it from reception to the beach without stopping and without getting any tourists in the shot. There are also notes to collect along the way, and the notes will be doubled if they take 2 notes at least of each of themselves. And they get a map of where the money is, and while Klaas is worth €10 and Tim €20, Annemieke worth 500, and only Klaas is allowed to pick the money up. And they've got 30 minutes to do their video. Now, this is a question that you raised on the challenge guide for this challenge, Bindles.
Yep.
But what would have happened if someone who was on a negative note was in the final 3?
I don't know. I think they probably would have just made it a double and then stuck extra money in there, so like the end maximum was still the same.
Yeah, because my assumption is that it's a nice, clean €2,500 they can earn in this challenge, including the doubler.
Yeah.
Because we see that they found 5 of Klaas. Presumably there was a 5 of Tim somewhere, and then there was 2 Annemiekes. So that would make a perfect round €2,500 if that was the only money that was out there.
Yeah.
But of course, Art's introduction implied that maybe there was notes of other denominations out there as well. So I'm assuming, for my stats, for the record, that it's €2,500.
Yeah. I have another question. Like, it's established sort of very early on in the challenge that Klaas is able to film Tim and Annemieke without it being penalised. So why don't they just stand directly in front of him for the entire challenge and use their body to block the entire shot?
Exactly what I would have done. Like, they just need to have someone as a human shield there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the video is actually of the resort or anything pretty. You just need to not have any tourists there. The other thing is what they do at the end. I actually noted this down before I watched the end of this challenge. Is just have Klaas look at his feet. If there's someone nearby, have him look at his feet for 10 seconds or whatever. Because you're just giving him the chance to sabotage here.
Just see Tim just tugging Klaas to cover the camera and just walk together in unison and shuffle their feet across the resort.
Yeah, they're overcomplicating this challenge far too much.
I like how just one of the people that ruined it jumped out from the bushes. Just like, oh, there was somebody that jumped out of the bushes. We have to go back to the start. I'm thinking, what type of resort is this?
Yeah.
Who just jumps out of bushes at an all-inclusive?
He just didn't want to be caught on camera being a peeping Tom. That's all it was.
But yeah, all they had to do, was cover up the camera or just have Tim walk around naked to drive all the people away, and they would have earned some money.
And to be fair, Tim probably would have done that if they'd asked.
Yeah, I've seen those photos.
Wasn't it with Jan Versteeg?
Yes.
I think we can actually talk about
you're serious? Oh, you're actually
Yeah.
serious.
I think during Georgia we alluded to the fact that Jan had done a nude cover shoot on a gay magazine. He did it with Tim.
And then they posed for the photos.
Oh.
They were just at home.
They're just life partners now.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, this is like a very, very fun challenge. Probably one of the best ones of the season. But it's also very, very easy to break.
Yes, it is. And that's why they needed us on the cast instead of these morons.
Yep.
23 out of 40.
Well, they can leave Tim there because we liked him, but the other two are just quite boring, let's be honest.
Oh god, imagine if this was Tim, Cecile, and Ellie Loost.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like, there was so much potential in this cast for absolute chaos. Because Cecile, if she had a camera on herself for this, if she was in Klaas's position, she would have just been looking at all the outfits. She would have been critiquing anyone wearing a bikini at the pool. It would have been TV gold.
Like, even somebody like Rob or Remy would have been entertaining.
Yeah, I think Remy probably got a bit of a bad rap because he was out second.
Yeah,
He seemed in the reunion very nice and sincere.
yeah. And he seemed to be, onto Klaas, which is more than most of these people.
Yeah. So Annemieke shoos a man and child from a bench, and she says it feels like they're in The Walking Dead. Then, as Saunders says, they get ambushed by someone in a bush and have to start again. And they finally find some money near the pool and don't know how to clear the pool area. To which all I have to say is that in my extensive experience from playing Habbo Hotel as a child, all you have to do is wear a suit and an afro and tell people that the pool has AIDS. That clears the pool immediately. That is a very niche joke that not that many people anymore will get, but Habbo Hotel Origins is now a thing. Annemieke meets a couple who ask if they're famous, and she says, "We're so famous, but we don't want you to be," and sends them away.
Such a, like... I like how she referred to the resort, all the people at the resort, as the Walking Dead, which at most all-inclusive resorts, with how much people drink, by about the third day, it is like they are on The Walking Dead.
Well, The Walking Dead would have been an actual cultural touchstone at this point. Like, no one remembers The Walking Dead anymore, really. But 2015, 2016, that was kind of the peak of its popularity, I think.
Yeah, it was basically that and Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Even Game of Thrones, I don't think would have really reached its heights in 2016. I think that was a bit later than that.
I think in 2017 I stayed in Dubrovnik where they do the King's Landing scenes, and everyone was talking about it, that a lot of the hostel I stayed at was the same hostel that the extras would stay at. So it was just, all we heard was stories about the extras in the hostel. So yeah, 2016, 2017, probably for Game of Thrones.
So they reach the beach, but Tim isn't satisfied that they've only found 40 euros. They also realise that only Klaas can take money, so the 40 euros that Annemieke picked up wouldn't count anyway. And she makes a man hide around a corner so he's not on the camera.
It's like Buster Bluth.
And then Klaas finally picks 5 of his own notes up from a table as they approach Arts with 2 minutes to go. And they find him with 50 euros and the video gets checked. Luckily for them, they earn the 50 euros of 2,500 for the challenge, 650 euros of 4,000 for the episode, and 13,020 euros of 47,310 for the season.
And I think we can all agree when we look at Klaas, our first thought is Usain fucking Bolt.
Yes.
I mean, you've never seen him in the same room. That's all I have to say.
That's because of the restraining order.
Very true.
50 euros. What percentage of the money did they earn for this challenge?
Well, it's 50 of 2,500, wasn't it? So
2%?
Yeah, 2%.
Could you imagine like Grant Buller just saying, yeah, 98% goes begging?
Yep.
Can you imagine Papa Bear saying these things?
50 euros. He would have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, he absolutely would have rinsed the shit out of them for that.
As he should have. It's kind of funny that Art spent the entire season rinsing the shit out of them for like stuff like that, and then this one he doesn't mention anything.
Maybe it was cut out just because it was a bit too brutal.
Yeah.
But percentage-wise, that does leave them on 27.5% for the season. Which is not bad. The pot is actually low because the maximum is low.
Yeah.
What was the final maximum?
47,310, I make it.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, without that weird, 23.45 bid, they probably would have been about 16,000, which still lower than basically every other season aside from Sri Lanka and then like one other one that ended up at like 12,000 or something. But, it's at least understandably low.
Yeah, so with the 2,345 bid, that would have bumped them up to 15,365 or 32.5%.
Yeah, that's respectable.
Yeah, that does feel like a normal value, even though it's still one of the lowest.
Yeah, it's skewed by the fact the maximum is so low rather than them doing badly necessarily, although they did do really badly until last episode.
Until production just started just flinging money at them.
Yeah. The other thing I think it is worth pointing out, and it's something I did forget about this season, is they filmed for so long this season.
Yeah.
Like, the final day is day 19. That's Belgian style.
20.
Oh, day 20.
The finale, the quiz, the final quiz was, just on its own day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks long nearly this season, which is basically what Belgium does.
Mm.
which is insane because nowadays it's barely touches 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they had no money for a prize. They had to keep spending money for hotels.
Well, they do have to be able to afford all the all-inclusive resorts that you can find in the Dominican Republic.
What's sad is that they each didn't even get their own hotel room for the final 3. They still only booked 2 rooms for them.
Yeah, I did. I thought that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
Because from a production standpoint, you probably want the mole to have their own room so you can brief them privately. So then there's the usual memory porn on the evening of day 19 to celebrate the final day as they toasted champagne. No one cares about all that bullshit.
Day 20.
No, that is the evening of day 19 that they have.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah. Don't correct me, Saunders.
Sorry. You're right. I was jumping ahead in my notes.
And on day 20, Klaas and Annemieke head to get their beard and nails done for the finale. She says her mole is relaxed, but sometimes she spots him realizing he needs to pretend to be stressed. Tim just goes to the beach on his own to enjoy his own solitude, and he says he doesn't understand all the hints he heard in the monastery or the back of the notes, but he's guaranteed to get answers to his questions today. The irony in Tim saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get all my answers today, is the fact that they didn't reveal the mole and location. All 3 of them went home with not knowing who was the winner and who was the mole officially.
Annemieke has one of the most ridiculous quotes of the season during the segment too. Did either of you catch it?
Which one was it?
When she says, around episode 8, I wanted to reach the finale.
Ah, yes.
I mean, what she has for the final 3, final 4, she said, I really want to reach the finale now that I have this exemption so I don't have to do this quiz and automatically make the finale.
Yeah.
What? That's like saying, yeah, I really wanted to go to the grocery store when I was standing outside the front door after driving 20 minutes to get there. It's like you deserve to get 23 out of 40. Jesus. Keep the mole as far away from you. Decide you want to make the final 3 when you've made the final 3. And yeah, that's Annemieke.
So they all head to Isla Sona for the final test. There's more about how great it is to be in the finale, but the most important bit of this is that Tim finds a dog and is completely ignored by said dog.
Yeah. In my notes I have, Tim fails to get the stray dog's attention and looks so disappointed by it. That way failed. I was thinking, that's banner, Michael.
It's a potential for the banner. I am struggling for the banner of this episode, so I might go back and try and grab that one, actually.
Yeah, make it the dog.
Look at banner, Michael.
So it is now time for the final test. 40 questions about the identity and actions of the mole all season long. Whoever knows the most goes home with the pot of €13,020 and unmasks the mole. Tim says that Klaas seems saintly, but he brought the wrong cart in the salt mines. If you're bringing a cart back weighing 135,000 kilos, make it the right one. His job is to remember lines, but he was messing around so much on the bridge to nowhere, and he lost it after 2 words. Tim is Klaas's mole when he got shot with €50 in the laser game, but also gave the wrong advice. When people ignored him, they succeeded. He took a route in the sugar factory that couldn't reach a clock, and that was the only thing that cost them money, and he didn't even stop a clock in the end. Annemiek's mole's Klaas. She thinks she has enough evidence. He didn't bring in much money. He did busy work, but nothing really specific. It felt like he was messing around. If she's wrong, she'll be historically wrong. She's not spreading at all, and still pretty much gets the score that is 50-50. She could have put points on Tim and still probably done better than she did.
Yeah. Because, like, not only does she basically have a 50-50 chance of getting every question right, a lot of those questions would have had things that apply to Tim and Klaas at the same time.
Yeah. And I also pointed this out to you, Bindles, when I was watching the episode yesterday, but there's a bit where Tim talks about, oh yeah, I didn't see anything about the clues of the mole and all that sort of stuff. And they intersperse this with about 5 or 6 different scenes of Klaas fucking around with something. It is not subtle that Klaas is the mole in this scene. Like, I don't even think this was an official hint.
No.
I think this is just the editors having a bit of fun with it. Because they are not subtle. They don't even show any of Annemieke messing up. It's just purely Tim narrating going, oh, I didn't see anything. And us seeing lots of Klaas doing things very badly.
Yeah.
Art then reunites them for one final time to explain why they could be the mole. One of them knows better. They were briefed before leaving about everything that was going to happen. Armed with that knowledge, the mole took their journey, and knowledge is power. Annemieke tried not to be too fanatical, something that always failed. Her attempts often didn't work. She didn't understand the monastery assignment or leave the control room at the abandoned resort. She hit the jackpot in 4 in a row, but it seemed to be a burden. Tim may have the sharpest view of all. He played on all levels and was always unexpected. He seemed to manipulate everyone in every direction. Klaas is clumsy, a loose cannon, but very precise in what he says. He can be social, but was mainly a loner. In a game full of pairs, he didn't make any pacts, but was blown off by Cecile, a position that a few people have been in. Love you, Cecile. Living with him was a curse. Checking in with him and checking out of the game. One of them's the winner, one's the loser, and one's the mole, but who is which? Only one person knew they would be here on day 20. Who is the mole? Who is the mole, Saunders? Give us your episode 9
Klaas!
suspicions.
It's Klaas! It's Klaas!
Bindles and I have been trying so hard to mislead you on Klaas.
I don't want to say the other two were really dumb this season, but like you just know when Art did his like he did the thing where he turns to the camera, he's like, "Oh, you'll find out next week." You just know they had to cut out Tim looking directly at the camera, being like, "Who are you even talking to?"
It's like Simpsons, where it's the "Who Shot Mr. Burns" episode, and Dr. Hibbert turns to the camera and says, "Can you figure it out?" And it's just Chief Wakeham on the other end saying, "Yeah, I guess I'll give it my best shot."
So, for the avoidance of doubt, Saunders' suspicions were that Klaas would be the mole, Tim would be the winner, Annemieke would be the loser, and that in the perennial question of who's fucking Saunders, the answer was Annemieke and Taeke again.
Loser.
Yeah, that was the real mystery of the season. At least I got half right.
Yeah.
Just like Annemieke on the final quiz.
Yeah. You got 23 out of 40.
Yeah. So, as is traditional at the reunion, it looks absolutely freezing in Vondel Park in March. And me being me, I did look at what the weather was that day. It was 3 degrees maximum in Amsterdam on the
Ooh.
day that this finale or this reunion filmed.
Yeah.
How is Tim wearing a t-shirt?
Because Tim has just come from a lot warmer countries and he can still not feel the cold.
And apparently Tim's brother is making out with a bunch of people by using Tim's fame. I was not expecting that to be mentioned in the reunion.
Yeah, we'll get to that shortly. But my favourite thing first is the fact that Art does his usual thing of, "Oh, is it Annemieke?" And you just hear, "Yay!" "Is it Tim?" "Yay!" "Is it Klaas?" "Yay!" And then he turns to the camera and goes, "Oh yeah, it sounds like it's pretty much split between Tim and Klaas." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It very clearly was Klaas in that crowd."
Yeah. Like, he's infinitely better at doing crowd work at the Vondel Park than Rick is, but Christ, he's still terrible.
Yeah, I actually forgot how good this reunion was. It's probably my favourite of the live reunions. Because a big complaint of the live reunions is that they fuck around, they do far too much at the start of the episode, then don't have time for the hidden clues and all that sort of stuff. It never feels like they're dragging too much. And at one point, Art does actually say, "Oh, you need to hurry up your answers because we got stuff to get to it."
Yeah.
It feels like they never lose control of the stuff they have to get to on this live reunion compared to the modern day ones where there's just so much fecking around and half the clues go ahead.
Well, they never lose control, except for that bit with Vivian.
Yeah. But that is also hilariously funny, and they deal with that very quickly. They don't stay on Vivian for more than about 10 or 15 seconds. They realise the microphone's fucked up and just go, "Right, we're cutting that bit."
No, they should have just. I wish it just stayed on for like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Vivian's such a random choice as well.
Yeah.
Like, she was on the show, what, 7 years before this?
Yeah, she was in Northern Ireland and Jordan. Yeah, and like, I don't want to spoil how well she did for Logan, but like, I wouldn't have thought she would have been the first choice. Like, it feels like they had somebody else lined up and they were sick.
Yeah, given who usually does the crowd work nowadays, it's Chris Sagers, who was in the previous season to this one, and Ron, who obviously hadn't had his season yet. But, like, I would have thought it would have been maybe the people doing Mole Talk at the time, which I think it was Marguerite and someone else. I can't remember who. Or it would have been maybe Chris. It might have even been Marguerite and Chris, actually. But yeah, that's the whole point of having mole-top people. And obviously this season is ripe for people who go on to then do more moley things, because you have Rop going on to host Mole Talk, which he's only just finished doing, as we said a few weeks ago. You also have Annemieke, who does the official podcast with Rik now. She's still very much in the pay of WIDM.
Interesting choice. I can't wait to hear her. I'm sure she has some amazing insight.
I think they're friends, which is the whole point of why she got the job, rather than being anything good on WIDM. So these 7 losers are around the table, and WIDM wants us to talk to them on Snapchat, which always makes me laugh when that logo comes up, because nobody's used Snapchat since 2016. I did a few weeks ago at my work meeting get asked if I use TikTok, and I said, no, I'm 31 years of age. Of course I don't use TikTok. That's very much a 12-year-old thing.
Vivian was hosting Mole Talk, by the way, with Rik.
Oh, actually, that makes sense then. What a random choice.
Yeah.
So Art starts with Iron and immediately reveals who's fucking Saunders, as she left with something beautiful, namely Taeke. And I will also say that I was looking into this because I wanted to see whether Tim went to their wedding. They only got married this year.
Oh, 8 years.
Yeah, they'd been together basically since WIDM filmed, and had 2 kids in the intervening period. But yeah, they got married in January. Apparently, they were only engaged for 7 months, and they moved up the wedding because Take's mum wasn't well.
Yeah.
I can't find any pictures of Tim at the wedding, but I really wouldn't be surprised if he was there.
Yeah. Art being all, right, let's get this over with when he's starting to talk about it is yet another sign that Eureka failed to understand this show.
Yes. Yeah, it's deeply ironic us talking about this in the week that Eureka have decided Mole wants showmances now.
What?
Oh, you didn't hear about this? Two of the players on NetMol got a bit flirty and kissy, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, like was there intercourse involved?
I don't know if there was intercourse, but they got hot and heavy in Malaysia, put it that way.
It was hot and wet.
Yeah. So they started flirting at the test when she went home. He was playing hard to get. Ellie says that she could feel the sparks flying a bit. She noticed they were standing and sitting next to each other a lot. And I will also say my favourite thing about how everyone looks at this reunion is that Taeke looks like young Homer Simpson. He looks like Homer Simpson with hair, and it makes me laugh every time he comes on the screen.
I didn't even think of that.
It's because he's really clean shaven in the reunion. He's obviously had a shave that day, and he does just look like young Homer Simpson.
When I was 17.
I was racking my brain yesterday just trying to think who he looks like, and I'm like, he looks a little bit like Donkey Kong. But then it came to me, I'm like, he looks like young Homer Simpson.
Actually, Tim does look a little bit like Diddy Kong.
Yeah, when they go out to the bars together the week before. Hey, those are the characters from those are the people from that video game.
Maybe that's why they were scared. They had to keep them away from all the barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is also worth pointing out that this was the first Mole season to air on a Saturday. I think we did talk about this at the start of the season, but this was the first Saturday season. So when Tim says, oh yeah, I flew in last Friday, I don't know whether that was last night or 8 days ago at this point. It could very well be that Tim literally flew in for the reunion a day before and then went out drinking with Taeke.
Yeah, that's probably more likely. Just flew in, went out for drinks with Taeke, and then loses his sweater and jacket overnight, so he has to show up to the reunion in a t-shirt.
Yeah. Art says that Cecile's looking beautiful. She says sometimes she had to look away from the screen when she saw herself sweating in her ironed clothes looking terrible. And they even mock up Cecile's water shoes as a terrible product. That is a level of humour that WIDM does not do anymore. Rob says he has no regrets. It was so unexpected that you could have intense contact with a group you didn't know before. And Taeke says it was 9 lovely people, and also Tim was there. I love Taeke and Tim's bond. They bring out the best in each other.
They keep going back to Rob in this finale. I'm like, what is their fascination with this man?
Yeah. I mean, as we said a couple of weeks ago, he's probably the least interesting person in this cast. He's certainly a contender.
Let's get Rob's thoughts on this.
He's not exactly Rop of my list. So they then rewatch Cecile and Rop at the laser game before reminding Remy of his hubris, and Cecile still claims that she wasn't wearing white leggings. And Remy says he tried to bait them all into reacting, and it obviously didn't work. Myline's kids are fans of Via Stamol. Normally they see her playing a bitch, but now they have to deal with seeing people call her that in real life. And then Art puts his foot in it by saying she would be worried to share a room with Ellie, but he meant it as in she would have been interrogated rather than, in a Mark from Argentina way. And thankfully, she didn't use any of her police techniques. Ellie's then asked about how to discipline, obviously, and Art suggests she's been annoyed watching WIDM over the years as to how chaotic any walkie-talkie challenge is, and she will be pleased to know that there is a walkie-talkie challenge in the first episode of Oman that is deeply chaotic.
Yay!
As is traditional.
I did love when Ellie started trying to explain ether discipline again. Art is like, we don't have time for this shit now.
Yeah, that was the one where that was referred to, I think, where I said Art was like, yeah, we do need to get to stuff, so hurry it along a bit. Ellie is a delight in this season, I have to say. I know I said this when she went home, but this season was improved vastly by the presence of Ellie List. For her complete lack of self-awareness. So they then look at the app stats. Klaas is on 46%, Tim on 30, and Annemieke on 22, before all three of them are brought out. I remember it being a lot higher for Klaas than this. I think maybe it was on Bother's Bar.
I wonder if maybe they sort of adjusted the results just before recording.
Yeah, or maybe it's the stats over the season rather than the stats actually in the final week, because I don't think there was much of a chance that anyone in that room did not know that it was Klaas. You'll note that the audience were not asked who the mole was with the traditional Chris Thagers champagne moment. They were asked who the winner was.
Yeah.
There was never anyone going, oh yeah, I think Tim's the mole in that audience. Oh yeah, I think Annemieke is the mole. Everyone knew it was Klaas.
Yeah, they didn't even do the round table with the eliminated contestants either, saying, who do you think's the mole and who do you think's the winner? They all knew.
Instead, they just go to Taeke and he just implies that viewers who suspected him were fucking idiots.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the best. I wasn't even trying to mole anything.
So Tim gets pulled upon just wearing a t-shirt despite it being freezing. His mum kept getting asked if he was the mole at her hospital where she works. Well, as Logan said, his brother used it to pick up women using his brother's name. I can tell you this now. Tim's Instagram name, at least, I think it is on Twitter as well, is the brother of Rose. So he never actually mentions his sister. He mentions his brother here, but never his sister.
Huh.
Was the sister famous?
No, but I presume he has at least two siblings. But his Instagram name, at least, is Deborah Van Rose. And apparently, a lot of people have said to him, "You're actually a nice guy."
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah, he's like, well, what? Well, I guess that's editing for you.
I have a reputation to uphold. I'm a fucking arsehole.
Yeah. Bam!
And then he was the one who punched Taeke in the face, which explains so much. Klaas was described as a confused man with a normal posture, and those who know him said that's just how he is, but no one in his life is confident whether he actually is the mole or not, unlike literally everyone else watching this program. And Tim only just got back after 2 months of travelling through India, Mexico, and Australia, and immediately went drinking with Taeke. Immediate panic. We then see the reveal proper, which is Art speaking to the mole. They took risks, taking opportunities behind everyone else's backs. Sometimes they played the hero, but only as the calculated mole. We find out it was Tim who bid the €2,345 for the power over the third test. The warehouse opens, and we see who the mole is, and shock gasp horror, it is Klaas. Nobody could have predicted that.
What? I'm like Tyler Denk's mom from Mason Race 10. What?
You're like me when I'm speaking to a pair of radio presenters giving me an iPhone. I'm like, oh, shock gasp horror. I didn't think I was going to win as the only person who got a call.
Yeah, like Pikachu just freaked out, too. Like, what? Klaas? He was the mole? Holy shit. It's him?
And as Bindles said, Rop is asked to describe Klaas as a mole. He's very social, he'd write down a lot, he always wanted to create chaos when the challenges were explained. Remy was convinced that Klaas wasn't the mole. He was told, if you're the mole, you would win an Oscar. The day before he left, he found it suspicious that Klaas never had the questionnaire list, but he wrote down every answer for Remy as the ultimate bluff. Klaas tried to get him to keep it broad as he just wanted to keep him around longer. They liked the same music and they got along. Tim and Annemieke still don't know who won, and neither does Art. The answer is in an envelope in front of him, which he's not opening yet.
Which he will read in Ryan Seacrest fashion after the break. My favorite part with the reunion, too, is just, okay, let's find out who the mole is. Yeah, it's Klaas. Okay, in 45 minutes, we will tell you who won the season. That's where the suspense is here. Because that's why people watch Who is the Mole, is to find out who is the winner.
It does seem a bit pointless when we know Tim has been focused on Klaas for pretty much the entire season, and Annemieke only started when Rob was eliminated.
Yeah.
And still there was only 2 points between them.
Are there any of the mole actions you guys actually want to discuss? Because none of them are brilliant.
Can we talk about how lame they are? Like, I thought, oh, with just all of the ideas I presented for how the mole sabotaged various tasks, and just how let down I was by what the sabotages actually were. Maybe the more brilliant ones were on the website, but the ones that were shown is just, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's dumb.
Yeah. Like, I know Klaas gets a bad I know this season gets a bad reputation because that clue spoils Klaas in, like, episode 2. But, like, Klaas was a terrible mole anyway. Like, didn't really do anything. The few things, like, he did do, they don't get shown. Like, something like, doing that extra speech in Spanish in the TV show. That would have genuinely been a good sabotage if they'd included it in the package. Instead, we get, him leaving half the money in the chest twice, and those are supposed to be the biggest sabotages of the season.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that, like I shared in the group chat before we started recording. But when it's already a really low pot, him withholding 1,000 or 1,500 euros from opening a chest isn't really a sabotage, because it's just, well, mole pots are that they give out that little money in challenges anyway. Why should anyone even be suspecting anything? It's different from, say, like the early seasons of US Mole of challenges being worth 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. And if in that case somebody opened up a chest and only brought out 10,000, that would be a great sabotage. That would raise a lot of eyebrows. But when it's just, oh, I brought you 1,000 euros instead of 2,000 euros, it's like, well, we already know WIDM has a shrinking budget. Why should anyone within reason have thought there would have been 2,000 euros in the chest anyway?
Yeah.
And my other thought is, because I didn't know about the hidden clue at all. I didn't know about the whole, I knew the story behind the season of everybody knew who the mole was by episode 2, but I had no idea that it pointed to Klaas or what the clue even was, other than, or you said it was because of the notes, right? That everyone figured it out from that.
No, so it's actually the clue that we told you to skip here. I don't think you've seen the major clue of the season, but in the old moles' speeches at the monastery, they all said the same sentence, which is, the game doesn't change in front of your eyes, it happens behind your back, which is the whole theme of the camera mission in episode 9 as well. But basically, the last word of every mole speech was Molebook, Ordeal, Legenda, Contra, and Focus. And if you put those in order, it spells out, the first letters spell out MOLCF, the last letters spell out KLAAS.
Oh, I see.
CF being the abbreviation for look at.
Yeah. And because the title for that episode was the last word, literally, everyone knew exactly where to look.
Yep. So basically, it spelled out mole, look at Klaas.
I see. And so for me, it's just, with WIDM at this point, they have such a narrow range of who they appoint to be the mole. So I was going through and I was thinking, well, we already know with certain archetypes that it wasn't going to be Elielust. It wasn't going to be Cecile, just because of their personalities. Tim was the comedian of the season, so they don't really use the comedian as the mole. Taeke is an athlete. I don't think they've ever picked an athlete to be the mole.
Well, as we discussed last week, an athlete has never actually made the final three.
Yes. So that was until what? Until Rocky?
Up to this point, yeah, Rocky was the first.
Yeah. And then plus Iron was first executed. So that's 5 people that I just could rule out almost right away for the most part. And then you just knew with Annemieke, just the way it's like, no, it can't really be her. I think the only person that I really suspected more than Klaas at any point was Rock.
Yep.
And that dwindled pretty quickly. And then Marline was just so odd at times, just weirdly intense about very random things. That's like, no, she wouldn't really be picked to be the mole. So I think it's just because it's always the same 2 or 3 types of people that it was that much easier to figure out it was Klaas. And then he was put into the roles of where I thought the sabotages would be. And that's why I figured out it was him very quickly.
Yeah.
Plus, I looked at the wiki. No, just kidding.
I knew it.
When I watched the season, I was on Klaas from the beginning. Just because, like, that very first challenge in the train station where he's telling the group he picked that they wouldn't get it, that felt like a very sort of fake, rehearsed, like, reaction sort of thing, and that's what sort of stuck me on him. And then the next episode, the clue happened, and I was like, well, it's him. The whole season's been ruined. But like, I don't think Klaas was a good enough actor to hide that he was sabotaging. Is basically the problem. And I don't think it's a coincidence that sort of next season they pick the award-winning actor to be the mole.
And I was thinking too, just when he did sabotage, like when he was like with the clock stopping challenge, when he's the only one that hits the one that goes into negative euros, just that whole thing of him trying to find the button to stop it just seemed very fake. It didn't really match up with his personality. And then in that final challenge with the camera too, this lined up with his personality where in terms of, or just rather his, when he's really being over the top with the sabotage, that Tim says, "Oh, whatever you do, Klaas, don't turn your body to the right." And then he immediately turns his body to the right as if, what? It's like, no, you heard what Tim said. Why are you doing that? But it wasn't like a clumsy way. It's just, that didn't feel like he clearly heard him. Why is he turning his body to the right wearing the camera? So I think he just had a really tough time matching up the sabotages with what he would do with his real personality. And I mentioned this in the chat too, because it got mentioned in the reunion show, is that Klaas himself said, "Oh, the only 2 people I ever interacted with from this cast before the season was Tim and Annemieke." Sure enough, those are the exact 2 people who figured out he was the mole this season. So they would know his real personality, and that's why I think, especially Tim was onto him so quickly, and why Annemieke was able to figure out it was him halfway through the season.
I will say, I feel a little bit bad for Klaas upon a rewatch of this reunion because I think he was quite pissed off at that clue being found so quickly.
Yeah.
And he felt like it really impacted the way he could enjoy the season. And you can see it on his face.
Like, I feel bad for Klaas. I don't think he would have been good anyway.
No. But I have a little bit of sympathy for him having rewatched this reunion going, actually, yeah, that probably did affect you quite a lot, and nobody's really considered that in 8 years. Because he is considered, in a lot of places, as probably the worst WIDM mole, certainly up there.
Yeah. Like, I think he's better than Euron.
Well, yeah, people are wrong on your own, because didn't he get ranked like 5th in 2022? I think he's unfortunate in that, obviously, this big clue came out and it got solved very quickly by the Mulota. I don't think he would be by far the best mole, even if it hadn't come out, because he's just a bit underwhelming generally. But I think I don't think he would be the worst one if that clue didn't taint everyone's perception of him.
Yeah, I was thinking too, just he should just be viewed as a weak mold rather than the absolute worst mold that ever existed on this show.
Yeah,
because I'm sure with that clue being solved so early on that he just didn't stand a chance of being viewed as a decent mole. And I was really surprised that him, just talking to locals in Spanish, like with the cooking challenge. I'm surprised that wasn't shown as a sabotage that he told the cook to work slower or something like that.
Yeah, like I think there were a few things like that, like the cooking, the TV show, probably something with the cycling, because God knows what happened there to completely ruin that challenge. I think a lot of the things that would have probably helped rehabilitate his image as a mole are the things that got cut out because they didn't have time. And I think maybe they probably need to look at not doing the live reunion if that's going to keep happening every single year.
Yeah, I mean, we're very vocally quite anti live reunion, I would say, on this podcast, because this one is a better one, certainly compared to the more modern ones that we've got, because Art can actually keep control of a room as much as Rik is a lot better in a live setting than a recorded one. I do think that maybe they need to go to pre-recording it earlier on in the day and then actually editing it.
The other two sabotages they showed were really lame. Was during the poster challenge when they had to have all the posters after they drove around town in that Herbie car. That he's just like, oh, I switched around where Iron was. Okay, that's anyone could do that. And then the other one was, oh yeah, during that mirror, where we had to mirror the other room, I moved an object 2 inches to the left. Ooh, you clever, clever mole.
Yeah,
And he shunted the table, to be fair.
yeah, like pretty much all of the sabotages we got are either not taking all of the money out of the chest or, making one small, tiny change like Iron, like the mirror, like the stairs that, cost them a lot of money because they had to be perfect to win anything. Or he was just, oh, somebody else is fucked up. I'm just going to follow what they say.
Yeah, he was never an active mole, he was more of a passive mole.
Yeah. And even, leaving the money in the pictogram chests kind of doesn't really matter because they use that as the excuse to justify him winning the first challenge. Like, oh, I'm going to win the money now, but then it's going to come out later. Well, then you haven't really sabotaged anything. You've just, broke even.
It's interesting for us because obviously this is the first season that we've done on Historians where actually there's a lot not to love. There's some bits where we go, oh, this is fucking stupid from production.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually interesting for us to talk about a season a little bit more negatively than we normally do on Historians. And yes, they got quite unlucky with some of the boot order. A lot of the deadweight hung around for far too long. Not looking at any names, Rap and Annemieke. But they picked an ineffective mole. They picked someone who blends into the background a lot of the time. And it's ironic I say this because he was one of the three old moles who literally had to blend into the background in the Renaissance Challenge in the square.
Oh, really? They did? I was about to ask if he ever got brought back in a future season.
I can't remember whether he's done any other appearances apart from that, but he definitely was one of those three.
Of course, he appeared in a season where Owen was the mole.
You've actually seen two of the three now. I think the only one you've not seen is Mexico.
Mexico won.
Yeah. I think that old mole is the only other one that you've not seen from that challenge.
I will say, just on the point of like Logan being able to pretty much rule out half the cast anyway, just because they don't really cast that sort of archetype as the mole. I think there's sort of a very valid reason why Klaas in particular was picked as the mole that I can't really explain because it sort of goes into the history of the show in the few seasons up to this point.
Yes.
I'll probably, post it in the comments whenever this episode comes out or whatever, but they hadn't had a Klaas type of person as the mole for a little while before this. It's probably the easiest way to say it.
Anything else you guys want to talk about with hidden clues and shit, or?
The clues were at least interesting.
Yeah, I did laugh that the traditional episode title clues didn't go the way I expected them to, because the fourth one was less than you think, apparently alluding to the fact that he had less yokers than Taeke thought in the quarry. But I thought he was referring to the climbing sabotage, where there was less money than they thought was in that box.
Yeah, there's a lot of like double meanings with the titles this season. Because we had a photo finish where the clue wasn't to do with the photo challenge. It was because all the money they won in the resort challenge had Klaas's face on them. And some of them like do seem like coincidences that they've sort of retroactively decided to clues, like Klaas being in carriage M1825 in the train, which, add the numbers together, you get M16. Like some of them were genuinely clever, like all the crosses everywhere that we didn't know, like we didn't pick up on, like the windmill at the restaurant, the tiles in the tile game, the little cross on the end of the pen when they were doing the auction.
I do like the monastery hidden clues in there as well. The various symbols on the wall, which I've actually alluded to all this on the podcast before, because if you cast your mind back to when Saunders and I did Belkia Mexico, and I was convinced it was Peter because of all the crosses that were appearing there, that was directly because of Klaas.
Yeah.
I've not been able to tell you this for however many years it is at this point, 6. But yeah, it was because they hid so many crosses with Klaas to refer to his surname that I was convinced it'd be a mole clue when we kept seeing crosses.
And like the fact that we didn't pick up on that when, they'd had all the fishing clues for Susan Visser and then all of the clues related to the name of the Sri Lanka mole. Like the fact that they'd managed to do that for the 3rd season in a row and nobody noticed it. Like that's genuinely impressive by this season standards.
Yeah. As much as we are quite hard on this season, there's a lot to like in this season. I mean, some of the casting choices are amazing. A lot of the hidden bits of the hidden clues are actually pretty good.
Like I did like the other one in the monastery where they do a quick montage of like all of the old mole faces sort of blown up on the walls, and there's a very quick shot of Klaas's face in there.
Yep.
Like I don't know how that one didn't get caught when all of the other ones did, but that was pretty clever as well.
I must admit, I did spot it when we did the rewatch, because as we discussed at the time in episode 2, a lot of those old moles that they picked have very distinctive faces. And Klaas's smile is very distinct in that quick flash.
Yeah.
So I did pick up on it this time, but obviously I couldn't say anything because it would have given the game away.
Yeah. I liked when they did the test at one of the gallery, and then they had that shot of the wall with all the little tiny pictures on them. I liked that one of them was like a little sketch of Klaas with the mole thumbprint over his face. Like that's a good clue. And there's some other good ones that I managed to find, through going through a deep dive on the forums and all that sort of stuff. There's like the money clocks. The 4 we see in the intro are the 100, 900, 700, and 600. And Klaas was born in 1976.
The money Klaas.
Yeah. So the other episode titles, we got The Last Word Literally, which was the clue. We had The Writer Lives On, which was about the clue at the auction where the numbers you see spell out his birthday. 3 Gone, 7 Left was something about 3 players having left when Klaas took envelope number 7 on the bikes. Something is Nothing was basically Klaas winning the black exemption. And more or less exceptional was Klaas being exceptional by being the only one to stop a money clock on a negative value. Yeah, there's also one other clue that again feels like a coincidence that they've sort of justified. But like the Taino pictograms, when they form the code and it's 113, if you split it up into 1-1 and then 1-3, you get K and M for Klaas mole. Like it's an okay clue, but I feel like it's something that they sort of noticed after the fact and tried to justify.
So, have we talked enough about Klaas so we can finally talk about Tim, who's actually the star of the season? For all the negatives about Klaas being, let's be honest, boring and obvious, thank God Tim won this season.
Yeah.
If Annemieke or Rop had won instead, it'd be interesting to know how much more that would disrupt the legacy of the season. Like, just if the season would always be used as a punchline for the epitome of a bad WIDM season.
Yeah. Tim winning saves this season, I think, because he is a constantly incredibly entertaining presence. And as I've said before, him and Taeke bring out the best in each other. And it's very rare that you have a pair on WIDM who do actually bring out the best in each other, and Tim and Taeke definitely do. Because if they'd been cast on separate seasons, I don't think either of them would have been nearly as interesting as they were.
That's a really good point.
I love Tim offering to shout Taeke a few beers with his weddings and then Taeke being like, oh, but it's an open bar here already.
Nice try.
And even better, an open bar sponsored by Heineken, because you can see it on the glasses.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Tim is an amazingly entertaining presence. It's basically like if you have taken the most entertaining person in every season and let them win. I mean, arguably with something like Georgie, you have about 4 different options. It's such a relief that Tim wins this season,
Yeah.
even if it's by a very small margin.
Yeah, like I don't think even somebody like Ellie Luce winning. I think sort of if she'd been there the whole season, it would have got a bit draining. Like if Cecile had been there a whole season, it would have been draining as well. But like Tim was just, I don't want to say like normal is the right word, but like Tim was just enough of a normal person that it didn't feel like a cartoon character winning.
Yeah, he's in many ways the straight man of the season, just reacting to this bullshit and going, "What the actual fuck are you lot doing?" He's the
Yeah.
audience surrogate in many ways.
Hmm.
And yeah, him and Taeke is a really fun relationship because you can tell, especially in this reunion, how much they really do enjoy each other's presence.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame I couldn't find out whether he actually went to the wedding or not. I suspect he probably did.
I like how Klaas, how in this reunion we just suddenly find out that Klaas and Remy were this big pair that we had no idea even existed during the season.
Because we didn't need to see it, they were both irrelevant to the season.
Yeah. I wonder if the season would have been more entertaining if Remy was the mole, like in Klaas was out early.
Well, Remy was my number 1 pick in week 1. As I said, it was the only week that I didn't pick Klaas as number 1, was week 1 when I picked Remy. And actually, for the record, Saunders, I think you would have beaten me by 1 point on the suspect list. You would have come second.
Really?
Yeah. This season also has the legacy on the Brothers Bar suspect list of being the first one with bonus questions, but also the one where I came the closest to winning. I came second in this season by 2 points. And that was entirely on bonus questions. I missed one of the bonus questions, and the person who beat me missed none of them, and that was it.
Huh.
Which is rather irritating because I was winning with the exception of the bonus questions. I don't think we need to eulogize Annemieke really because, who cares?
Yeah. I certainly don't.
She was there.
She had her moments.
Yeah. It is interesting to compare Tim and Annemieke because I think her and Rop maybe bring out the worst in each other in terms of being really boring,
Yeah.
whereas Tim and Taeke bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
I feel like as soon as Rop was eliminated, Annemieka's personality really started to shine a lot more, where we had a lot of these amusing quotes or just interesting behavior. She bounces off of Tim and Taeke a lot better than she bounced off of Rop.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's why for like the first 7 episodes of the season, it's just, there's really not much to say about Annemieke. And then as soon as Rop's gone, it's, Annemieke is actually kind of a memorable character. It just happens, in the words of Jenna Lewis, just too little too late.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at this final 5 and go, yes, you had 2 clear pairs that they were ramming down our throats constantly in these last few episodes. And Tim and Taeke bring out the best in each other. Annemieke and Rop don't.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Annemieke, gets more interesting when Rop's not there. But then also in the reunion, Rop is a hell of a lot more entertaining before Annemieke turns up.
Yeah. It's like I said, that when they're together, they don't work.
Yeah, like I think, if you put either of them in another season, I think they both would have been entertaining characters. It's just because you've got the two of them together and they're both like such similar sort of personalities that they're sort of basically fighting for the same airtime.
Well, I mean, you see it in the first challenge. Rop was very entertaining on the Metro with the whole red nails and giving Tim the baby told and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he meets Annemieke, they just don't bring out the best in each other.
Hmm.
And normally when you say they don't bring out the best in each other, they're like fighting and hateful and all that sort of stuff. But no, they just are quite boring together.
Yeah.
In a weird way. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this season is actually the characters are interesting, but in a different way than maybe a season that we normally would do in Historians, where everyone brings out the best in each other and everyone's just a big character and really entertaining. But you have Tim and Taeke doing that, but you don't have Annemieke and Rop, even though they are quite important to the end game. It's Annemieke especially.
Yeah, like I think if you put them like individually, they're sort of art level entertaining. If you put them together, they're Rik-level entertaining, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah, and I mean, Art, as we have seen, is actually quite a good host of WIDM. He was maybe a bit of a shit in El Salvador, Nicaragua, but he's actually quite a good host of WIDM. He does have his moments at these reunions, especially, and Rik is better at the reunions than he is in the recorded shows. But that's also not saying much. For the record, I do very much like Healer after one episode. I think she got the tone right.
Oh, good.
Maybe that'll change after I've seen 7 more episodes of her, but for now, she's actually doing what I hoped she would.
Oh, good.
In host of the game, as they called it. Anything else you want to say about this season?
No, not for me. It's better than Renaissance.
Well, yeah.
I did like Ellie getting a chance to explain her fuck up in the monastery and her basically being, this challenge can't have been that dumb, and actually I was listening anyway, so what does it matter? And then it turns out, yes, the challenge actually was that dumb.
Yeah. And I also like how Art took the piss out of her by saying, yeah, when I lose my keys, I now just search clockwise. And she's like, see, I told you it works. Like, for all Ellie's lack of self-awareness, she's a very quick mind.
Yeah.
So she's actually really good at reacting to Art taking the piss out of her or Rock taking the piss out of her. I think she actually would be quite fun to be around.
Yeah. She's just, very intimidating.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I'd be terrified of being around her, but I think she actually would be quite entertaining to be around. Is that it for the season, then?
Yep. I feel like it's fitting that we ended up with a discussion of Ellie Loosed.
Yeah. Well, it's how this season should end.
Yeah. Whoop whoop, that's the sound of Ellie Loosed.
We began with the sound of Ellie Loosed, and we end with the sound of Ellie Loosed. So in that case, thank you for listening to our WIDM 2016 recaps all season long. We'll be back very soon for more episodes. Who knows what they are, because we don't know yet. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. Logan's on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Loxakwaki, Bindles is a Grim Recapper, and I'm Richie Harmstone. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles. We will see you very soon.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Toodles!